that although I do know that opinion polls show that a majority of people still want to carry on wearing masks past the deadline on July the 19th, and still overall have a kind of support for the sort of restrictions that we've been living under, there is a growing large sizable minority which has had enough. And it's particularly so in the young people. Young people are, who are thrusting and energetic and incredibly valuable in our society. They've had enough. I mean, I've got 4 kids. 2 of them, my stepsons, are in their early 40s, but my children by my marriage to Judy are in their early 30s. And they and their friends have had enough. Now, it's not that they want to break the law. It's not that they want to do something which is profoundly antisocial, but they just run out of road. They run out of patience. And I personally think that one of the reasons we will see on July the 19th a comprehensive lifting of sanctions and protocols is partly a recognition by the government that actually they've got to get ahead of the curve. And you quite rightly talk about Wembley 3 nights ago and what we're going to see on Sunday, and all sorts of other big public events where it's quite clear that observance of what's left of lockdown is evaporating, if not completely evaporated. And I think the government has had to accept that and is actually jumping ahead of public opinion.
Indeed. I mean, what I'd like to know about these polls, I've always doubted them. And people say, oh, it's just because of the circles you move in. But I've never met anyone who was keen on lockdowns and keen on continuing them. And what I'd like to know about this most recent poll, saying that they want to carry on wearing masks and all that, how many of those people who were polled were at Wembley? How many of them were at the fan parks or the pubs or the restaurants up and down the country on Wednesday night? Because clearly those people didn't get their say in these polls, so I'm pretty suspicious about them. Richard, do you mind we're going to go to break. Do you mind just hanging on and rejoining?
No, of course,
yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I think just to go back to what you were saying before the commercials there,
yeah.
I completely agree with you about opinion polls not being particularly trustworthy in a particular political slant. I mean, we've all heard of the shy Tory syndrome. One of the reasons that the Conservative Party tends to do rather better in general elections is because people out on the street, when they're confronted with somebody with a clipboard conducting a poll, some of them can be actually slightly bashful about admitting that they're going to vote for the Tory scum. Yeah. And so they put themselves down as a don't know, or even say they're going to vote Labour.
Yeah.
And I do think that maybe the polls which have shown a surprising level of support for continuing to wear masks, for continuing to follow lockdown protocols, may well be because people think it's politically correct to say it. And what they might say to a pollster, i.e., will you wear a mask after July the 19th? Yes, I will, isn't actually necessarily the truth. That really what they intend to do is not to wear the mask. But they feel slightly guilty about saying it out loud, because we've all been made to feel guilty over the last 18 months about asking for our freedoms back.
Listen, Richard, bear with us and enjoy this music.
No.
Because it was number 1 when we won the World Cup in 1966.
The Kinks.
Little bit of pop facts for you there. So going back to the similarity of the atmosphere then and now, that's obvious. That was all about football, obviously about national pride. But I do think there's a different element going on. It's not just about football. It's about us reclaiming our freedom. Also, I think there's something cultural going on. What we saw the other night, that was the real Britain. Don't forget, this English team is very diverse. It is representative of a diverse country. And you saw the other night, not only at the Wembley, but also at the pubs and the restaurants and the fan parks all over the country, you saw people of all creeds, colours and denominations draped in the St. George's flag. That is the new England, and it has nothing to do with the woke warriors version of this country. I think there's a rebellion, almost a sort of organic rebellion going on against that woke nonsense as well. We're reclaiming Britain for what it really is.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I noticed exactly the same thing, obviously on the pitch, on the terraces, and as you say, in the television coverage of the celebrations up and down the country. Diversity was absolutely crystal clear, and it made me very proud. It made me very proud to be part of a generation which has genuinely welcomed and encouraged diversity, and to see it on display. You're absolutely right, Kevin. To see it on display on the pitch and off the pitch is a wonderfully positive thing. And as you say, it's nothing to do with wokeness. It's to do with mutual acceptance and mutual embrace and tolerance. And it's a wonderful thing to see. And as far as wokeness is concerned, I'll make this prediction. I think in 1 year, 2 at the most, that will be a word that we barely remember, because it is wokeness as we would define it, and we could talk about it here now, but we know what we mean. Wokeness, as we define it now, is such a stupid and weird concept, and so detached from the reality of most normal people's lives, of whatever ethnicity they belong to, of whatever sexuality they belong to. I think we will see wokeness evaporating like a puff of smoke in the coming months.
Yes, and don't forget, the woke warriors like to depict this nation as a racist hellhole. What the scenes we saw on Wednesday completely belie that. This is not a racist country. Their depiction of this nation as a vile place divided by race, by class, by culture, it's just not true. And that's the great thing about the football. The football is revealing the truth about this country, and as you say, it is dispatching the woke warriors to where they belong, which is crawling under some stone, and they can take their messages of hate and they can stick them where the sun doesn't shine.
Absolutely. And as far as racism in this country, of course there's racism in this country. There's racism in every country. But it seems to me that the litmus test is this. When we have a clear-cut case of racism that it comes to the courts, that's exposed in the British media, all of us feel our gorge rising. We hate it. We loathe it. We feel ashamed of it. And that is the litmus test, because where racism is identified, where racism is proven, we loathe it, detest it, and kick it into touch. That is not the mark of a racist society.
Can I just divert you slightly to the ongoing coronavirus crisis, which, as we both observe, seems to be kind of just dissipating before our very eyes almost organically. No matter what the gloomsters from SAGE or the government say, the people have made a decision. They're voting with their feet, and they're voting by throwing their masks away. I know you don't want to talk about this too much, but I was very impressed when you had Susan Michie, the SAGE psychologist, on Good Morning Britain the other day, and you asked her the question which everybody wanted to ask her, and nobody ever seems to have had the guts to do it, which is, do you let your lifelong communism infect the way that you work? I mean, I find it strange. I don't want to diss her as a person, but I just find it very, very strange that we have this devoted lifelong communist advising the government in, as I said earlier, our worst crisis since the Second World War. I mean, in her political interests, can we trust her in the advice she dispenses?
Well, I thought my question to her on Good Morning Britain 2 or 3 days ago was, I thought, and a lot of people would agree, was extremely politely phrased. It wasn't hostile in any way, shape or form. She's absolutely entitled to her political opinions, sure, and to be a scientist at the same time. But it just seemed to me, based on the commentary, widespread commentary, mostly in the print media, not so much in the broadcast media, that there was a question to be asked about the fact that she is and has been a lifelong communist. She's been a member of the Communist Party for 40 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine. And there was no hint of criticism in my question about that. What I was asking was, did she think, on reflection, would she like to share her thoughts on this? Given that communism is a top-down statist organization, and you look at any country around the world that's ever been ruled by communist dictators, because that's what they are, it's all about the state holding the levers of power and telling the people on an individual one-to-one level and on a collective level what to do. And that's actually what we've been experiencing for many good reasons under lockdown for 18 months. The state has been telling us on the most minute of daily sort of detailed basis how to behave. And I simply asked her very politely and very carefully if she accepted what some people have been saying in the print media about that, which is that if you have that political bent, then maybe it might bleed through into your advice to government. That's all I asked. It was really polite and it was a very careful question. It's caused a bit of a furore. Yeah. I have no idea why, because I think it was journalistically 100% sound. And I've had nothing but support from journalists in print and journalists in broadcast, people like Andrew Neil, for example, who say it was absolutely the right question to ask. So I have no regrets about asking it. I'm sorry she got a bit upset. I don't like making people upset. That's not my thing, but
What I find extraordinary is the way everyone sort of goes, "Oh, how dare you ask her that question? It was top journalism, mate. That's what you should be doing, and she deserves to be asked that question. She should not get high and mighty. All her colleagues say it's got nothing to do with it. Well, we have a right to inquire, and congratulations on a good bit of television and a great bit of journalism. Let's just before you go, Richard, we need to return to the football.
Yes.
I think I just want to put on record how well all the players and, of course, Gareth Southgate, how well they've conducted themselves throughout this tournament. They've become serious role models and they have been great ambassadors for the English game. So full credit to them. But now I'm putting you on the spot. The score on Sunday.
All right. 4-2, penalties after extra time. I think it's going to be an absolute reflection of the score in 1966, except this one will go to penalties, and we'll be fine with penalties, because if any team can have had better psychological guidance on how to take penalties under pressure, it's this England team under Gareth Southgate. So I think it's going to be incredibly tight, which is why I think it'll go to extra time. I think it'll be a draw at extra time, and I think we'll win on penalties.
Where are you watching?
4-2.
Okay, 4-2. Where are you watching the game?
Going to be watching it in our living room here, and then I'll be going straight to bed, because we've got an extra early start on Good Morning Britain the next morning, because we know that whatever the result, we're going to have to come on air, all feet running. So we'll be on air at 6 a.m. talking about it. And I know we're going to be talking about an English victory.
Well, good for you. Let's fingers crossed 100%. Football's coming home, Richard.